శుభోదయం. Arjuna raises his issue in front of Krishna, saying that all these people, they are getting killed. They will be killed in the war. Why should I fight the war? But that was not the question that Arjuna raised. Arjuna raised this question, my people get killed, and that's why I'm worried. You see, he was a warrior basically. That means to say, all these years the training that he has taken up is essentially to fight war. And in the war definitely people get killed. So that is not the issue. If that was the issue, Arjuna would have been a different person. If he would have said that, okay, killing people itself is bad, then probably he would have been like Ashoka. But then that was not the issue. He said, my people get killed. If it were not my people, then war is okay. If it were not my people, then this particular war he would have really enjoyed. But suddenly the question came up because that it is my people, they are getting it killed. So much becomes a problem for him that he became nervous there, standing there with shaking hands and shaking legs, and eyes are blurred, etc. All those things have happened. So naturally, the problem is not with the warrior, the problem is with Arjuna, the I. That was more important. Krishna replies him, and that's what comes up in the Jnana Yoga Shloka Sangraha, the 6th and 7th shlokas that he brings about. Krishna says, Achedyoyam adakyoyam akledyosho shevacha nityam sarvagataha sthanu achaloyam sanatanaha nainam chindanti shastrani nainam dahati pavakaha nachainam kledayantyapaha, etc. He talks about. That means to say, you are talking about people getting killed, and then Krishna gives an answer saying that Atma is something, these are all nothing but Atmas, and then that is something which you cannot cut with the help of sword, which cannot be burnt by the fire, which cannot be made wet with water. This is something like that. And this is something which is eternal, always there, etc. he talks about. This is a very important term that he has taken up. In fact, when we say Atma, that means to say our soul, our consciousness. Often people have this question that what will happen after death? Does Atma exist? Is there something which exists? Well, some people say yes, Atma is the one which exists. Then people ask the question saying that after I die, what will happen to my Atma? Please understand this question very carefully. After I die, what will happen to my Atma? See, you are identifying yourself with the body, and Atma is something like your possession. Like the way saying that after I die, what will happen to my property? What will happen to my institution? What will happen to my this or that? So it is like something which you possess from outside. Whereas Krishna is saying that Atma is not what you possess, you are Atma. In fact, body is what you possess. Body will come and go, but you are somebody who continues. And this is what Krishna looks at. That means to say, Arjuna is talking from a different plane, and Krishna is replying from a different plane. This is what you can see in the very second chapter of Bhagavad Gita, the total perception difference. That means to say, somebody is asking a question from the dream, and somebody is giving an answer from the wakeful state. It is much deeper than that. In fact, at least a person requires a small little effort to see that he can come out of the dream state to the wakeful state. But here, it requires a big sadhana. And what Krishna says is something from a different plane. This itself gives us an idea that there are two different perceptions that are there. And in the whole world, these are the two perceptions that are available. One perception the world has is matter-based approach. That means matter is everything, and then all other things are the things which are born out of matter. The second thing is that the consciousness based approach, everything is consciousness, matter is what that is an after effect of the consciousness. What is primary and what is secondary, these are the two different approaches towards this particular thing. And what Krishna's approach is the consciousness based approach, what Arjuna's question is a matter based question. So that's why Krishna answers Nainam Chinnanti Shastrani, Nainam Dhati Pavakaha. But there is another very important aspect that we need to realize in this particular conversation that is going on. Atman is something, consciousness is something, soul is something which cannot be burned by fire, which cannot be wet by water. You mean to say that it is something which is so strong that ordinary fire cannot burn it? Can I bring some special fire? What will happen to alright? An ordinary person's Atma cannot be burnt alright. But when Hiroshima and Nagasaki were bombed, the temperature there was so high, what would have happened to their Atmas? That means to say, at ordinary temperature you cannot approach it, but at an extraordinary temperature you can approach. At ordinary temperature you will not come in contact with that. At extraordinary level you might come in contact with. What I mean to say is essentially, the idea is that Atman is something, consciousness is something, when you refine and refine and refine the soul matter deeper and deeper and subtler, then suddenly Atman emerges. Please understand this question. Atman is a progressive state of refining this matter. At the end of it you find Atman. This is what basically some people have that. This is very important because scientist is trying to find out Atman from the path of matter. That means to say, I cut the matter into pieces, then it becomes molecules, then I cut further to atom, and further atom I divide it into electrons, protons, neutrons, and then further I try to cut into so that I can get into some smaller little, much smaller particles, and then when I cut that, maybe I will get at Atma at one time or the other. Please understand, this is what is the way science is approaching. But what Krishna is saying is that Atman is a different thing, and then consciousness is a different approach. Consciousness is a different approach, matter is a different approach. It is like what I can do in the dream state so that I can wake up. You cannot do anything in the dream state to wake up. You just have to wake up. That's the only thing. You are in the dream. And in the dream that you created, you are in the forest. After all, who created your dream? You created. And you are in the forest, walking all alone. And then in the forest, dense forest, that when you are walking alone in the dream, you are frightened. As it is, it frightens you. And added to that, suddenly you see that a tiger is chasing from behind you. And now you run for the life. Even though that dream tiger is what you created, you still feel that the tiger is faster than you are. And in no time, the tiger comes so close to you, it's almost ready to catch you. And at that last moment, suddenly something happens that you see a tree and then you jump up and then catch hold of a branch and then sit pretty on that branch and then look down. The tiger cannot get onto the tree. The tiger is down below. You feel you are comfortable. The tiger is safe. You are safe. And now you take a sigh of relief. You take a deep breath and suddenly you hear some hissing sound. You start wondering, where is it coming from? You look around. It is not from anywhere else that it is coming. The branch on which that you are sitting, that a cobra, a full-fledged cobra, is slowly coiling in and advancing towards you. Oh my God, I thought I saved myself from the tiger. Now this cobra is there. What should I do? You jump onto another branch for safety, and that cobra did not notice, and the tiger is down below. You are safe sitting on the other branch. You feel comfortable. But then, doesn't take much long that you start hearing in that whole silence of that forest, suddenly you hear a sound of creaking noise. Where is it coming from? You look around. The branch on which you are sitting, because of your own weight, is cracking. Now you look down, you fall down, there is tiger. On the other side there is a big valley. Or would you like to jump onto the other branch and then throw away the tiger? the cobra, what do I do? You are in a dilemma. Vedanta says, don't do any of those things. Wake up. The moment you wake up, there is nothing. You don't have to do anything to see that you get out of all those things. The problems are there, worries are there like the cobra, like the tiger, all those things. But the problems are there because that you identified yourself with the body. It may be that my own people, all these things that are there, it's all because that you have identified yourself with the body. My people, all these things come to the body, but not for the consciousness. That's why when Krishna says, Nainam chinnante shastrani, Nainam dahati pavakaha, that means you are somebody. Atman is somebody, not only you. All these people, they are not getting killed. You think that you are killing them, but then you are not killing them because they are Atman. Just because you do not know does not mean that you are not that. You may not know it, but the people who know it, they have said it. But it is not just sufficient to say that, look, I know now, because Krishna said, I also heard that I am Atman. No fire can burn me, no hand, no water can wet me. You might also say that you are happy that you understand that. You are happy that you know that now. Now I understand that I am Atman. Then can you go and put your hand in the fire? Now the moment that you go and put your hand in the fire, it still burns you. You still get pain. You still get suffering. What happens? This simple consolation that we get that we are Atman satisfies me is not because that we are really experienced. It is because that we have a fear of death, and to safeguard ourselves from the fear of death, to excuse ourselves from the fear of death, for the present, that to be able to see that I can feel myself comfortable, even though there is a fear of death, it is like a consolation that I think that, yeah, I am Atman, I will not die. It is not real spirituality because it is not born out of experience. It is out of fear that comes. In fact, very often what happens, people become spiritual out of fear. And that spirituality is pseudo-spirituality. It is like insurance. It's like assurance. It's like giving you some kind of a consolation that, look, you will not die. Anyway, your Atman will continue. This is how basically it happens. Yes, all these things we can hear from others when we are not having that fear of death. But the fear of death is a person, this is like a safety insurance. It's not really the growth. It's not really the development. Do we have that experience? We still identify ourselves with the body. That's why we have the fear within us, that the fear that we might suffer, we might die, we might have all these problems. That's why this acts like an insurance against that particular fear. Come out of fear. Don't go to the God out of fear. In fact, God is also there. Take care of all those things. It is out of fear that you go to the God. When the fear is not there, we don't even go to the God. The same way when the fear is not there, we don't even think of Atman. That's why people at the old age, they become spiritual. At the old age, they become spiritual, not because that they want to become spiritual, but because it gives them that kind of an assurance that, yeah, we are also Atman, nothing will. At the old age, people become the believers of God. Why? Because at least if at all He is there, let Him take care of us. This is like that. Everybody becomes good because at least let me be good so that that good saves me. This is how basically it is. A person lifelong may be bad, but at the time of death, he will become good. Even if he will not become good, people talk good of him. Like a person died, and then in the church, the father was talking, his body was there in the coffin, and then the father was giving so many, talking about that person who died. He is so great, he did so many charities, such a wonderful person, and this and that. When all these things the priest was talking, the wife of that person who died had a doubt and looked at her son and said, "Son, can you please look into the box? Is it dad or not somebody else?" Because she could not even believe that who it is. See, this is what basically, we try to be good, we try to become spiritual at the time of death. But really, can the real spirituality be born from within our heart? In fact, that's what our Upanishads give us, the idea that all these Upanishad inquiries are from the children. Nachiketa was a child. Bhrigu, goes to Varuna. He was a child. And Ashtavakra was a child. All these people were children. That means, say, their approach towards spirituality is not out of fear, but out of genuine quest. And this is what is the idea. Now, what is the difference between the basic idea of consciousness-based approach and the matter-based approach? The difference is this way. Matter is something which is bound. Consciousness is something which has the freedom. In fact, we can know that very clearly. When do we say that somebody is conscious? When he has the feeling. Freedom. Consciousness has three important qualities. Please understand that. Consciousness has three important qualities. One is the freedom. The freedom is the one which can give up the freedom to go to something which is of less freedom. As something which has no freedom cannot gain the freedom to become free. Whereas something which does not have the freedom, which has the freedom, a total freedom, can itself give up its freedom to become something which is less freedom. It is like freedom is like the money that you have. Money itself gives us the freedom. If I have money, I can buy anything. I would like to have, I can use anything that money for. But the moment that I buy, I lost its freedom. That means to say, the money lost its freedom to become an object. Money itself you cannot eat. Money itself you cannot drink. Money itself you cannot wear yourself. But then money is actually the freedom that is there. Itself nothing, but it is the freedom. But that freedom will help you to buy a cloth, buy food. But the moment that you buy a cloth or food, that means you have curtailed its freedom. The same way, consciousness can become anything. And then consciousness, by becoming something, lost its freedom to become something which is less freedom, which is supposed to be matter. So consciousness has the freedom. The freedom, when we say, it is freedom to become one or the other, freedom to become good or bad, right or wrong. All these things there is freedom. And that's what is the way that the consciousness manifests. Another thing is, consciousness is the one which has the feeling also. When do we say somebody is conscious? Is when somebody has that feeling. So all these feelings that we have, whether it is good or bad, right or wrong, they belong to consciousness. They do not belong to body. Look at the simple idea. We identify ourselves, we can understand the feeling, but then we identify still with the body. But the feeling does not belong to the body. Feeling belongs to the consciousness. Somebody is unconscious, cannot feel it. Somebody's consciousness can only feel it. In fact, that part of the body where there is no consciousness, you do not feel it. Like you go with a tooth pain to the dentist, and the moment that the dentist puts on his special chair, and then he picks up that instruments in his hand, you start already feeling the pain. But then he says, no, I'm not going to do anything to you. Then he takes a swab of local anesthesia and puts it, just gently touches to the teeth there, to the gums there. Then now you don't feel it. Already the feeling is going away. That means consciousness is going away. Then he gives a injection of local anesthesia. Then that whole part becomes numb. Now he takes the instrument and tells you that, look, I'm not doing anything. I'm just only touching it. And then you are feeling it. You don't feel it. Actually, he's cutting. But then you don't feel it. Because the consciousness is not there. You don't feel it. When the consciousness comes back, then you feel it. A jhat contractor is building a 5-story building. And then two people working on the top of the building fell down, slipped. And then one broke his bones and the other died. And the fellow who broke his bones was crying. The contractor comes to him and shouts at him saying that, look, that fellow lost his life and is keeping quiet. And you are a couple of bones broken here, you are crying. See, you cry because that you have consciousness. Otherwise you wouldn't have been crying. That means the feeling is there when the consciousness is there. Not only that, another thing is the freedom. That means to say, if you have a feeling, that means you can move your leg. If your consciousness is there in the leg, you can move it. If your consciousness is there in the body, you can move it. When the consciousness is not there, that freedom is also not there. Feeling and the freedom, both these things come with the consciousness. Not only these two things, the third most important aspect is consciousness has feeling, freedom. Together with that, it also has responsibility. That means if I am conscious of it, not only I have responsibility for myself, I have responsibility for people who are around me. Like the way the child does not know fire burns. Child is not conscious of that fire burning. But the mother knows fire burns. So unconscious, if child puts the hand in the fire, mother will be scolded. Because mother has the responsibility to take care of the child. So just because that we have the consciousness, or we have the consciousness, that's why we have all these three things. One is the feeling, the second thing is the freedom, and third is the responsibility. In fact, in the species, when you take it, that human being is somebody who is a spectrum which exists from the simple body level, gross body level, to the highest level. That's what is the consciousness. Now, in this particular spectrum, it's up to you whether you would identify yourself with the body or whether you would identify yourself with the consciousness. The moment that you identify yourself with the consciousness, then you have the highest responsibility of the creation, and you have also the feeling, and you also have the freedom to operate. These three things are there. So that's why Krishna is suggesting Arjuna, why don't you de-identify yourself from the body level? Because when you are in the body level, you feel suffering, you feel pain, you feel stressed, you feel anxiety. Whereas the moment that you de-identify yourself from the body and you identify yourself with the consciousness, then you have the freedom, then you have responsibility, you can recognize. All these things happen. This particular idea of Nainam Chandante Shastrani, Nainam Dahati Pavakaha, it is not talking about somebody, some consciousness, some Atma somewhere, some soul somewhere. No, it is you. You identify yourself with the soul. It is something that we need to do the sadhana about. The sadhana that we need to do is that it is not said this way that Atman is something which is not burned, which cannot be burned, which cannot be wet, but we should take it the other way round. That is, whatever that can be wet, whatever that can be burned, whatever that can be cut by the soul is not Atman. That means to say, whatever that can undergo the change, that is not me. Atman is not soul, does not mean that there is something which is an entity. Atman basically in Sanskrit means I am. When do I say that I am somebody who cannot be cut with the sword, who cannot be burnt with the fire? When I can say that whatever that is being cut with the sword, I am not that. Whatever that can be lost, I am not that. Whatever that something can insult me, that I am not that, because you are somebody beyond all those things. This is what is this practical way that Jnana Yoga works on that. What happens with us is, small little loss that occurs at the other levels, immediately we get so much perturbed, agitated, disturbed. You lose some little money and that throws you out of all your balances and you become so agitated. If you are not cared for, if you are not noticed, and then you become so upset, you become so disturbed. Why did you become disturbed? Because you identify yourself with something which can be recognized, de-recognized, which can be something which exists, not exist. And that's what basically is the suffering of us. So all the suffering is nothing but our attachment to something which is continuously undergoing change. The nature of it is to change. The nature of it is that it has both the aspects of it. And because that it goes from one thing to the other, that's what disturbs us. Like for example, what is born will have to die. Whatever that is born will have to die. And if you don't want that what is born to die, then who is suffering? You are the suffering. Whatever that keeps changing is like the wave. And what is there underneath is the ocean. And you identify yourself with the wave, that you are constantly undergoing all these tribulations and turbulations and all that. Whereas they identify yourself with the ocean. You are somebody deep inside. Nothing can disturb you. Nothing can upset you. This is the basic idea. Similarly, if you look at the flower, today it is there, tomorrow it is not there. The flower will have to die. But then if you hold on to the flowering, then today is also there flowering, tomorrow is also the flowering is there, day after tomorrow is also the flowering. If you are at the leaf consciousness, one leaf is different from the other, from the third leaf. Today this leaf, the old leaf, another new leaf comes, he says that yeah, you are a young fellow, you do not know how this world is, how the wind going to be here and all those things. Why it happens like that? One leaf feels itself to be different from the other leaf. It is because that you are limited to the leaf consciousness. The same thing that you rise yourself to from the leaf consciousness to the tree consciousness, that all these leaves are not different from one another. One may be old leaf, one may be young leaf, but it is all belonging to the same tree. And how can a leaf can go to the tree consciousness? Only way the leaf can go to the tree consciousness when the leaf goes from within and then identifies itself not with the leaf but with the sap that is there and go deep into that one with the tree. Then it becomes different. So the more and more that you go deeper and deeper and deeper, then the lesser and lesser that you identify yourself from the rest of the world, you separate yourself from the rest of the world. Then this Atma is whatever that is reached. That means to say, when the Upanishad says, when the teacher of Bhagavad Gita says that Atma is not something which can be burnt, Atma is not something which is wet, which means to say it is not just my Atma, it is all of us. The I of all of us, that's what basically is something which is not touched. Unfortunately, what happens with us is that this I, when the Upanishad is talking about Atma, when the Upanishad is talking about, then we identify with the simple, smaller ego. That's what we say that, yeah, I cannot be touched, I cannot be something, I am Atman. Even this becoming an Atma becomes like our own ego trip rather than giving up our ego. So essentially, the whole Jnana Yoga is to see that de-identify yourself from whatever, detach yourself from whatever that is non-permanent and then identify yourself. Then automatically your identification rests with something which is permanent, which is Atmasthiti. That's what is the beautiful shloka that Patanjali, that Krishna gives in Bhagavad Gita in these two shlokas. Thank you.